Hi, I'm Jennifer Fairbanks with the Passionate Patternmaker, and I am here today with Lindsie Rank.
Hi.
So this is a slightly different interview. Lindsie came to visit me, so we've been really busy doing a whole lot of different things this week.
Yeah, so many projects.
I guess we'll start off and say, Lindsie, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. I'm Lindsie. I am the sewist behind So Busty, which has just launched into not just a community and a blog with a lot of free resources, but now is also a pattern brand for people with big boobies specifically. But I'm also a mom of a little 2-year-old, a wife. I'm also a lawyer. This pattern sewing is not my full-time job. Yeah, that's who I am.
Cool. So tell me how you started So Busty.
Okay. Yeah. So it was like 2020 and I am a lazy sewist. I hate Jennifer has gotten to see what a lazy sewist I am the last few days. I don't know. I don't want to take time to do all these fancy adjustments. I don't want to take time to do fancy techniques most of the time. Every once in a while there's a project where I'm really excited about the project and I'll put more time into it. But generally I'm a pretty lazy sewist, and that was definitely the case in 2020. And I was just really tired of doing full bust adjustments. I hated doing full bust adjustments at the time. I was a garment E-cup, so I was 5-inch difference between my upper bust and my full bust. And basically, I just was so frustrated with doing full bust adjustments, didn't want to do them, that I posted in some sewing groups asking for to crowdsource a list of designers who design for larger cup sizes. And I ended up with this list of I don't remember at the time, it was probably 60 designers or something like that, pattern designers that had either cup options or just drafted for a larger cup. And I decided to organize it all into a spreadsheet. And so then it became this spreadsheet with all kinds of information, the smallest waist size available, the largest waist size available. So you could, so you could sort it by what size you needed. And then people started asking me are you going to put this somewhere so it's accessible to the community? Because it was crowdsourced originally, right? And so I wanted to be able to give it back to the community. So that's sort of how So Busty came up. I also got a ridiculous number of new followers on my personal Instagram during this whole process. Hundreds of new people started following me. On my personal Instagram, I mostly post pictures of my food and my child, or at the time I didn't have a child. So it was my food and my dogs. And so it just became clear that there was a lot of appetite for this type of content for busty sewists. And there really wasn't a lot out there. So I ended up creating the So Busty website, putting the Busty pattern database up on the So Busty website. So it's totally accessible for free now, and has been since 2021. And then started developing, different pattern reviews for patterns that have different cup size options. And other resources like full bust adjustment tutorials. I went through body changes with having a baby. And so now I have an 11-inch or 10-inch difference between upper and full bust. So now even 99% of those designers that have larger cup drafts are still too small for me. So I still have to do these, what I call giant full bust adjustments. So I have a lot of tutorials about that on there. So that's kind of how So Busty started, out of laziness, but now I can't even be lazy anymore because no one except Jennifer has patterns in my cup size. So
yeah, so I guess I met you probably around that same time. Yeah. I was working on the Eve, I think the relaunch of the Eve, or I had already had the original.
No, it was the original was out. Yeah.
And so Lindsie became kind of my little spokesperson, without me even asking her. She's like, oh,
I just love this pattern. It's funny. I've been accused of shilling. Have you heard this?
Yeah.
shilling the Eve pattern. I just legitimately love this pattern. Like, I wear it all the time. It's not like, I think that the last time I checked, in the last like 6 months, I had gotten $15 as an affiliate for Jennifer. So I promise I'm not shilling. I just love this pattern and have since even before I had So Busty. So
yeah, and then I redid it a couple years ago, and then in that time, Lindsie had her baby, and then so working on it again, you're actually having to make some changes to it. So it's not completely perfect out of the box anymore.
Yeah, it used to be perfect out of the box for me. Now it's close, although now I've kind of starting to transition into drafting using your Bare Essentials method instead of using the Eve, because my boobs are just even weirder shaped than they used to be. So now I need like a ridiculous amount of inner fullness that I'd never had before.
Okay, let's see. So what brought you to Florida?
Well, I needed a break from my day-to-day. I just needed to get away from I love my job. I absolutely love my job. And obviously I love my family, but sometimes you need a little moment away. And then, I was developing these patterns. So I bought from Firebrand Lingerie, which is a now shuttered pattern company, although Firebrand, Carrie, who's the owner of Firebrand, is now venturing into doing some ready-to-wear swims. So you can still follow her. She's really great. If you need a swimsuit that will fit a busty figure, that's what she's working on right now. So, but anyway, I purchased from her 3 patterns, the Jet Set Natural, Jet Set Bullet, and those are 2 bra patterns, and then the Constellation Panty pattern. And they're all kind of like a retro inspired pattern, lingerie patterns. And so I purchased those from her after doing this Kickstarter that was just wildly successful. And I wanted to come and, work with Jennifer and, test out those patterns. But then also this is sort of my launch into doing garment patterns. So once these 3 patterns are launched, I'm not going to be doing any more lingerie patterns, at least for now. It's not what I want to do, but what I really want to do is come out with garment patterns, because aside from Jennifer's couple of like tank patterns, and then Lily Pad Designs has the one strapless dress pattern, nobody is doing garment patterns for people with really large busts. It's just like there's nothing on the market for it. Like Cashmerette, the largest size is a standard E-cup garment. Same thing with Designer Stitch. It's like all of the like kind of go-to pattern charm, like all these go-to pattern brands for people with large busts, like they're not going above a 5-inch difference between upper and full bust. So it's just a market that like needs something.
So yeah, we were chatting on, I guess, Facebook Messenger one morning, and I was like, I'm going to be adding courses for other people who can publish on my website. I was like, now that you're getting this pattern, I don't even think you had actually started the Kickstarter at this point. You were just in the talk about it.
No, I had definitely, because the talk about it lasted 2 days.
Okay. Well, we were talking early on.
Yeah, it was early in the Kickstarter.
And I was like, why don't you come over? We can hang out. We can film a course for you for the pattern that you're getting. And she's like, okay. And like 15 minutes later, she's booked a flight.
It was really cheap. The flights to Florida from Philadelphia are very affordable. And she's like, you can stay on my futon. I'm like, okay, so like there's no additional cost involved. Let's do it. So we worked on the course, which I have to say, if you decide to purchase the Jet Set bra pattern course, that's probably going to be like a So Busty exclusive forever, because I don't think I'm ever doing one of these courses ever again. I can't say that I really enjoyed the process very much. So if you have any of Jennifer's courses, like there is so much work that goes into these, and it's like, I don't know, I found it very grueling. So I bless you for having all these courses.
Well, and it took us, we spent about 1 or 2 hours the first day, because you were working on the pattern alterations.
Yeah.
And then on the second day, it was almost
the entire day. It was like the entire day between, I was editing till like 9 p.m. editing the video, which actually was my favorite part of the process. She was telling me that some of the other people who are contributing courses to her course website, they're like not really into the editing and having her do a lot of it. I'm like, this is the fun part. What are you talking about? I don't want to like be on camera and like having, it's really hard for me to like think through the steps while also remembering to like look at the camera. I don't know. It was a lot, but we got it done.
Yeah.
So there's a course for Jet Set bras now.
Yeah. I'm not sure exactly how many hours total it is because she goes through the measuring, and actually I am the model.
Yeah.
And so I am Busty. If you can't really tell, because I'm kind of off screen for those that are watching on video, but if you have actually seen any of my courses or seen what I do, I am on the Busty side.
Yeah.
And so I had actually designed most of my pieces starting with me as my base size, because again, I did it because I couldn't find anything that would fit me. And so, Lindsie went through measuring on me, so you can actually see how to measure on an actual busty figure. And I'm also about 2 to 2.5 inches asymmetrical. So Lindsie covered the instructions on how to adjust for it. And it wasn't even something I think she had really intended to do when she got here.
It was not something I had. It's not in so there's a whole 22-page sewing guide that comes with the Jet Set bra patterns. And asymmetry is not covered in that sewing guide. Like there's a bunch of fit adjustments, all different kinds of fit adjustments, but asymmetry is not something that's covered. So if you do have asymmetry and you want instructions on how to adjust this pattern for asymmetry, you got to get the course because that's the only place where those instructions are.
And I believe there was some swearing involved, but that was all cut out.
And if it wasn't, I'm not sorry.
So that'll be out at some point soon. This video may be out, or this podcast might be out after it's released. I haven't quite decided yet because I don't know when this one is coming out quite yet. But yeah, we've had a great couple days.
Yeah, it's been really fun. And then we worked on your sloper too. So Jennifer's working on a sloper book, and I think the So Busty garment patterns are going to use her sloper techniques as the sort of base for the pattern block. So that's been a really fun experience too.
We did we used my existing instructions, which I created a couple years ago. So I actually set it down about 2, maybe 3 years ago, because my accounts were hacked on Facebook and Instagram, and I had a tester community on there, and they were giving all their feedback, and as soon as that hack happened, I basically lost all of the feedback, and I was really kind of devastated. I was like, I can't really go and ask these people to give their feedback again, because they had just spent all this time. I doubt any of them had written it down before they actually shared it on Facebook. And so like, I lost all the messages, I lost all the feedback, and I set it down. I was like, I'll come back to this at a later date. Luckily, with the help of actually you and I think in Cashmere and a number of other people, they're like, hey, her account was hacked, she needs a new following. And it was always kind of a little blessing, because the quality of followers I ended up after losing my accounts was so much better than the original people were. But I think a lot of them were people that had followed my business out in California when I had the vintage shop. So I had a lot of people following me that weren't really into what I was doing presently. So it was terrible, but it was also a blessing. And then I've been wanting to get back into it, but just life has just been crazy. I went from, having my shop, everything here in the house in 2020, and then having to move into a warehouse that was 1,200 square feet. So, that little room right there, that's where everything was.
Having been to your shop, I can't imagine all of your product being in your house.
And my new shop is 2,500 square feet. So
it's huge. It's a wonderland.
Yeah. It's bigger than our house. But yeah, I opened up because this house is only 1,800 and so that's 25. So yeah, it's more than our mortgage. It's a nice big space. So we opened up last year and had sewing classes. And that has actually been picking up great. Like that was supposed to just kind of be a side thing that was to help offset the cost of the rent there. So I haven't had a chance to do this. And I knew she's like, oh, I want to do a sloper. I was like, okay, come over here and force me to pick this back up. And honestly, I'd still be sitting there had you not come. Like I would probably still be working on it in a year.
I'm happy to give you a little kick in the booty.
But even from like the first set of instructions, which even we didn't do proper measurements, we did it like with a t-shirt on. So we didn't really have the right placements. Our draft was so close to being really almost perfect.
Yeah.
We made a few changes once we realized, oh, that measurement wasn't correct.
Yeah.
And it came out even better. And and then we ended up doing a third draft from scratch after we had made a few more changes, because I realized that I had completely forgotten to add the bust arc to the draft, which
well, you said you didn't need it.
I didn't need draft, it on mine.
But because I'm very like
yes.
I don't know. I needed that extra bust arc, not just the circumference.
Yeah.
So
yeah, so we added that, but there was also a couple measurements on there that we didn't need for you. Yeah. So I don't know if they were absolutely necessary. So I'm going to go back and do a draft for myself again, eliminating those other steps. Yeah. So I think we can make it a little bit easier, but I'm super excited that we got it to fit you.
I'm really excited about it too. And like, there's a lot of measurements involved in it, but I really think that people shouldn't be scared of the extra measurements, because the problem with a lot of the methods that are out there, like the Armstrong method, the Aldrich method, is frankly, they don't have enough measurements. So you have your like, or even bunka, like you have your few measurements, I don't know, somewhere between like 3 and 10, maybe 15. And then you have all these equations that are based on like the average body. And so if you don't have an average body, these equations aren't really going to work for you. Whereas Jennifer's method, it has a couple equations, but the equations use the measurements that you took on your own body. Like X and Y are both measurements from you. So you might like take X minus Y, but everything is based on your body rather than some standard formula that doesn't really work for folks like us who have non-standard body. I mean, folks like most people, right? Like most people don't have standard dress form bodies. So I think you're going to get a lot more accurate results. And I've tried so many sloper methods. I have drafted so many slopers. And I think this was like probably the closest one straight out of the box that I've ever tried. The only one that I think would like rival it would be Natalie Bray's method. And I don't know why Natalie Bray's method worked. But I also haven't tried that since I had a baby. So it may not work as well now as it did back when I was a little bit smaller of a person. So yeah, anyway, if you're a curvy person, you should try this sloper method when it comes out.
Yeah. Eventually it will be coming out.
It will be coming out because
a couple evenings ago, we had a couple glasses of wine.
A couple being like, I think I had 4 and I'm a lightweight. So that was a lot for me.
And within the course of the conversation, Lindsie tried to convince me that I could have my book released in 3 months.
Yeah, I don't know. I was wrong. I also at the same time, I was like, you'll release your book and I'll release my first garment pattern and we'll do both of those things in 3 months. And then the next morning when I was sober, I was like, that was an interesting thought.
Maybe a year and 3 months? Maybe not. No,
not that long. Not that long.
But not 3 months.
No, not 3 months.
Yeah.
Maybe 6.
Hoping, cross my fingers. Now that I've actually got that out of the way, I think it'll be a lot easier to finish up my torso, my sleeve, and everything else, because everything was really kind of waiting on the bodice.
Right.
But now that we've got the bodice and I've got the skirt and I got the pant done, I feel like the pant would have been was probably just as hard.
Right. I'm sure.
Because the way that the measurements are, and so looking at it and actually thinking about how drafting books are, you have to get 4 different books. Like if anyone's going to be drafting for the whole family, they have to get a menswear, they have to get a children's, they got to get a pet drafting book, they got to get a women's drafting book. And then there's a lot of things within those that it becomes really challenging. So what my goal is to take these measurements that they could be used with really any body. And wasn't really joking, but am kind of joking that you could actually take your own dog's measurements and plug them into the same calculations in the same method and actually come up with a sloper for your dog.
Yeah, Jennifer's daughter Emily is over there smiling because I know she's excited to make something for her cats.
Yes, she's shaking her head. Yep.
She's like, yeah.
That or her stuffed animals. Like her stuffies are gonna want some clothes too.
I don't know. I think Brian would look pretty cute in like a little rain jacket or something
with a little white hat, like the little Paddington
Emily,
bear.
are you taking notes over there?
He'll be running away. He doesn't like to be. Don't put anything in his paws.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, what else can we? What else do we want to chat about? So, what are your plans for the future of So Busty? Immediate and long term.
Yeah, so in the immediate term, I actually just, while I was here, I was able to get the shop up and running. So you can now go on sobusty.com/shop and you'll get the 3 patterns that I bought from Firebrand. So the Jet Set bras and the Constellation panty. Right now I have them set as out of stock because I'm not quite ready for you to buy them yet unless you're pre-ordering through the Kickstarter. But by the time this this podcast comes out, I think they'll probably be there available for you to purchase. One thing that I really want to stress though is that the blog side of So Busty, the community side of So Busty, really isn't going to change. So there's still going to be, free resources, free tutorials. I want to keep, sewing really accessible and having this information out there on how to sew for your body, I think is just really important to have be accessible, free. And so that's always been kind of the ethos of So Busty, and that's not going to change. What's really exciting about adding patterns and adding the shop where you can get some of these, paid products is that that's actually going to help with the sustainability of So Busty. So I've been losing money on So Busty for the last, 3 or 4 years that So Busty's been up. Not a lot of money, but all of the web hosting fees, all of the the design software that I need, all of the, materials to put together tutorials, all of that has been unpaid labor. And I did a little stint of trying advertising that didn't really go super well. It turns out people don't want to advertise on websites where people's boobs are visible. Apparently it's not family friendly. So, which is whatever. I mean, it's bras, get over yourself. But anyway, it's just been I've gotten a little bit of money from Buy Me a Coffee from folks who have been so generous as to, sort of donate to the sustainability of So Busty. And it's been fine, but it is hard to justify sometimes, putting my family's money towards something like this and, losing money every month on it. And so the nice thing about adding the patterns is that now there are going to be paid products that are going to be able to help fund the free and accessible aspects of So Busty. So all the tutorials will be now funded through the sale of patterns. And so this Kickstarter that I did for the Jet Sets, and then I ended up adding a stretch goal of being able to fund the development of a pattern block for garment patterns. That Kickstarter is really great because it's now funded the first year of So Busty LLC. So Busty has a profit generating, or at least a break-evening venture. So that's really exciting, is that this is really helping to make this be something that can last for a long time. I am going to be working on using the sloper that we developed and then doing a sleeve sloper and developing a dress. I think the first garment pattern, original So Busty pattern is going to be a sheath dress. I always say shift and I mean sheath.
The shift is the straight, the sheath is
yeah,
the shape.
Shifts don't work on my body. Because if you just go straight down from here, but okay, a sheath dress that'll have some pockets. I'm really excited about it. I think it's gonna be really cute. So I'm going to be working on that. And then, I don't know, we'll see. I mean, I have a lot of ideas sort of brewing in my head about patterns that I want to develop, like maybe a button-up blouse pattern would be really fun. But I don't want to just do basics. I want to do some things that are, I don't know, more trendy patterns, because us busty folks, like that's really hard to find, like trendy patterns. So I don't know. Yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be exciting. I'm excited and looking forward to it.
And also remember, if you do buy things on, or actually click through on links on So Busty, she does receive some affiliate commission that actually helps fund it.
Yeah.
So actually Porcelynne has actually been able to help fund part of So Busty, not all of it, but the affiliate.
It definitely helped. I mean, like every little bit has helped, right? Like as there haven't been, paid products on So Busty. So that'll continue to be part of the overall business plan. I will say, like, even though having paid products is going to be really helping with the sustainability of So Busty, like it also is increasing the costs, right? So like now, instead of just needing to pay, a web host and pay for Canva every month and pay for, some miscellaneous like supplies, now there's like design software and like as in like pattern drafting design software, and there's like graphic design software that is more robust than Canva that I really need now. And like there's just more. I'm planning to hopefully provide like a small stipend to pattern testers. Like that's another cost. So there's more costs that go into it, and so every little bit, still helps.
Do you ever plan to teach in person?
I would like to teach in person. I think it would be really fun. One of my other gigs, I have like 3 jobs because I don't know, because I like to be busy. So one of my other gigs is I'm actually an adjunct professor at a university, or adjunct instructor, I think is my title, but I have 2 graduate degrees, so they can call me professor. Anyway, so I actually really like teaching. I've done some private lessons locally, teaching mostly like kids how to sew. And I really enjoy that. So I think it would be really fun to teach in person. Are you inviting me to come teach at one of your retreats?
I'm thinking maybe we do our own like slipper drafting retreat where we can have, be able to help really develop all of them, but using my method, but using kind of your experience doing it.
Yeah. Let's do it. That sounds really fun. I would love to do that.
Maybe on the cruise. Probably not on the cruise.
Not on the cruise.
Oh, that's secret anyways.
This cruise is secret?
Yeah, I haven't shared it yet.
I thought you shared it.
Mm-hmm. So I'll cut that out. Yeah, no, actually I haven't shared that we're going to do a cruise yet, because I want to make sure, I don't want to advertise that until we book all of spring and fall, because I don't want people saying, oh, I'll wait and do the cruise. So that's something else.
I think you posted on your personal Facebook.
Oh, that I might be thinking of one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It wasn't anything in nothing definite.
Got it.
Yeah, maybe we can plan something. It's kind of hot here during the summer, so maybe we can head up your direction.
We can head to Philly and make Maddie help us too.
Use Maddie's studio.
Maddie, can we rent your studio?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be really fun. I would love to teach in person. The video thing, like, not for me, but in person, that sounds great. Let's do that. Oh. Or even live. Like, I think I was telling you, like, I think I would be totally fine and happy, and I've done it before, like doing live sewing demonstrations. I don't know. There's something about the whole, like, the thing about live is that people expect you to like fumble sometimes, and that's sort of part of the authenticity and organicness of a live event. Whereas, like, I feel like there's so much more pressure when it's recorded. And I know you feel the opposite.
Yeah, I feel completely the opposite. Like when we did, and I did the live drafting on, I guess for the bra bee, the first year that they had it. And I was a nervous wreck. First of all, like, cause when I start recording, I can record. If I screw up what I say, I stop, pause, I can cut that out, and I can say it again. You can't do that when you're doing live. And I sometimes, because I'm a mom, sometimes the wrong words come out. And at least when I'm doing something that's recorded, I can sometimes go in there and cut it and give the correct words. Instead of me talking about seam allowance, I'm talking about darts, and I'm like saying completely wrong terminology. And I just get, maybe it was also, I don't remember. I feel like there was a lot of, no, there wasn't a lot of people on the screen. I'm trying to think how it was. I think it said that there was like on the screen, it said 150 people are watching this. And I'm like, oh my God, like 150 people are watching this. I was like, what if I have an itch on my nose? What do I do?
You itch your nose.
I know.
But you don't feel like that about like in-person classes? They're okay?
Yeah, in-person classes, I'm in my, well, I was a teacher.
Yeah.
I taught for almost 10 years in a university setting.
Yeah.
And it's like when I go in there and I'm in front of people, like in front, like you were there, I feed off their energy. Maybe
I teach my classes on, maybe that's part of it, is my classes that I teach are all online. And so that's sort of what I'm used to. Yeah, and I think I'm used to engaging with people.
Part of it is I feed off the energy of the students. And when I can't see reactions to things I'm talking about, it's a lot harder for me to know, I've included enough information. I can move on.
I totally agree. I feel like I much prefer live virtual classes where you can see everyone on the screen. Like everyone has their camera on. You can, like, it's a back and forth versus like the panel setting, I guess, on Zoom, where all you can see is the number of people are watching you. I much prefer having the faces and like having that two-way interaction.
Well, I've also,
so I can see that.
There's also the time, you're supposed to be teaching this within, let's say, a 1 hour time frame. And it's like, okay, I have to make sure I map out that I cover this topic by this time, this topic by this time. And then what if I'm talking too fast? Am I going to be finishing early? What do I have that's filler? When you're recording it all, I can go in as much detail as I want. So even if I have like, my goal is to have an hour of finished content, I'd probably have almost 2 hours worth of filming, because then I can cut and say, okay, well, I repeated that here. I don't need that. And I can have as much as I want, and it's not going to hurt me if I have it longer.
Yeah. I see that. I don't know.
It's
different strokes for different folks. I don't know. That's something that I think might be in the future of So Busty, is like some online live classes.
So maybe what we do is I have some pre-recorded segments of me talking, and then you're talking to the pre-recorded me. That'd be weird. And you'll have to react to me.
I don't know about that.
No, in
I'll
person.
do that. Yeah, the reacts, the Lindsie reacts to Jen.
Yeah. I guess if I were to do something that is live, I would need to have at least one person who can make all the facial reactions, so I can be like, okay, we can move on. Or
yeah. I mean, I think if I end up doing live courses with So Busty, it will be like everyone will be on camera. We'll keep the cohort small, so that like I think like when I first started learning bra making, it was during the pandemic, and I took a class from Gigi's Bra Supply. Do you know Gigi? Yeah. And it was a mix of pre-recorded and live. So like she would show the steps would all be shown pre-recorded, but then there was a live meeting like weekly where we would like have a couple hours to ask questions and like engage with the other people who were doing the process with us. And that was kind of cool. But I think for me, like I'd want, frankly, the whole thing to be live. Like we could record the Zoom so that then if you needed to go back and refer to it, I don't know. This is clearly not something I've thought through, but it is something that I'm interested in potentially doing at some point. We'll see.
Yeah, so definitely share your feedback with either of us.
Yeah, let us know what you like. It's funny because, so if you've never been on the Craft Snark subreddit, never go on it because it's a sad depression hole, I feel like.
So what is it?
There's sometimes a Craft Snark. On Reddit. It's sometimes kind of interesting, but also sometimes I'm like, oh my God, people hate everything. I don't know. But I still look at it because I don't know.
It's addictive.
Kind of. And it is legitimately interesting, even if also it's a little like, why does everyone hate everything? But there's been a lot of discussion lately about sewing courses on this subreddit and like what people like and don't like from sewing courses.
Oh, sure.
It's really interesting. So I won't name any names because I'm not here to like tear down anyone's business, but like there are some courses out there that I guess there's one in particular that people are not super psyched about, that is like it's essentially how to launch your own pattern company. And I guess it's a pretty short class. I don't remember how many hours they said it was. But I think it's something like 20 hours. I don't know, something like that. But it starts with how to sew, and then how to draft, and then so like in like 20 hours, you're theoretically supposed to go from like not knowing how to sew to like being able to launch your own pattern company. And people reasonably are like, why are people spending thousands of dollars on something that's clearly like ridiculous? Like you're not going to spend 20 hours going from learning how to sew to like being able to draft patterns for anyone. Like that's silly. And gray patterns.
Have 13 hours in my bra making class alone, and that's not even drafting.
Like how to make a bra for yourself. Like not like anyway. So and then there's another one that is kind of a similar course, but it's just
so too much not enough information for what,
and super expensive. So like there's another one that I want to say is like almost $3,000. That's I think a 12-week course on pattern drafting. And that one doesn't get as much snark as the other one, but kind of a similar thing where like it's how they advertise. It's like they overpromise, like you're going to learn how to like, you'll be an expert by the end of these 12 weeks. You'll like, you know, I know. I'm like, Jen over here is like, has like a whole degree.
No. And when I had my shop in California, I had one lady come in and she's like, well, I want to take a class in pattern drafting. And I was like, okay, well, I have an 8-week course where, you know, we show you all the intro. She's like, no, I want to learn pattern drafting. Like, you know, I want to schedule an hour. And I'm like, it takes a lot more than an hour to learn pattern drafting. She's like, it can't be that hard. My mother can do it. And I was just like, oh, does your mother know you just said that? Like, it was probably her entire life that she spent to learn.
Right. I mean, it
drafting.
used to be something that was like often passed down generation from like my mom learned pattern drafting from her grandma, who learned pattern drafting from her mom, you know, like, and that's where I started to learn, you know, my mom taught me a little bit and then I've invested, but I don't know. I'm still like, I wouldn't consider myself an expert by any means in pattern drafting. And that's part of why with So Busty patterns, like I am working with folks like you, and I've also worked a little bit with Ruby from Spokes and Stitches, where people who have like actual fashion degrees and like actually have like expertise, because I don't want So Busty patterns. Like there are, again, I'm not going to name any names, but there are a lot of pattern companies out on the market right now. It's a pretty saturated market with who just like don't really know what they're doing. And like I've seen patterns that are literal like rectangles that are sewn together, and then they're like, no, it's a dress. And I'm like, that's not, like, bodies aren't rectangular. That doesn't make any sense. And so like, I don't want So Busty patterns to be another one of these, you know, pattern brands that's on the market that just like is low quality, poorly drafted patterns. And so working with experts like yourself to like audit the drafting, you know, help with the grading, things like that. You know, I'm hoping that results in the high quality patterns that everyone can trust.
And I still feel like I'm learning all the time too. Like, and you know, I've actually been working with a lot of students privately with my new sewing business. And one of the students, he wanted his first project to be a cape, a simplicity cape that's like a coat, like a 1950s style coat. And it was really cool. And once we started sewing it together, it had a pattern mistake in the back of the collar. And it was a very bad pattern mistake. It was really weird. And it wasn't until we had cut everything out that I'm like, we're getting ready to sew it together. I was like, this doesn't look right. I was like, I don't like this. I was like, do you like this? And he's like, no. I was like, we can fix this. I was like, so we made like a little patch and made it like a little design detail. But like even like professional patterns, you know, from you know, the big five or whatever you want to call them, you know, it's like even some of them have bad pattern mistakes. It's like either, you know, why would we sew on, I mean, and we followed the instructions because we want to assume that the pattern's done right. But, you know, when you sew on a collar, like on a coat, you don't have 5/8, 7-inch seam allowance. It's just insane.
Oh, I know. These 5/8 inch
Ugh.
seam allowances, like, oh my God, I hate 5/8 inch seam allowances. My
Yeah.
patterns will be a 1/2 inch seam allowance, which I recognize isn't that much smaller.
But for wovens,
and then
it makes sense.
right, for wovens, you need a little bit more.
Yeah, for knits, I do 3/8.
Yeah, probably
bras, I
the
do
same.
1/4.
Yeah.
But like, you know, I know a lot of people they don't even do the 3/8. They'll just do a 1/4 if it's on a knit.
Yeah.
But you know, that's just kind of how I was trained, and how
Right.
because I've seen students can't sew 1/4 inch. If you're sewing 1/4 inch, you're going to have a hole in your garment because they can't control the seam allowance.
Right.
3/8, at least you get a little bit of buffering.
Extra.
5/8 is just a little ridiculous. It becomes an inch seam allowance before you know it, because they think, oh, it doesn't really matter.
Right. Yeah, I mean, but you're totally right that like all patterns, regardless of who, you know, who created them, even the Big Five or Big Four or whatever they're called, you know, they have so much ease in their patterns. Like I can't sew Big Four patterns or Big Five patterns because like they're like want to give me 10 inches of ease at my bust. And I'm like, my bust is already 46 inches. Like you think I need 50? Like it just looks ridiculous. And so I've really gotten away from sewing them. But, you know, I mean, sometimes mistakes are to be expected. And so like I think while I'm going on this journey, like there's a balance between like, okay, is this like, am I letting perfect be the enemy of great? Or is this really something that like needs to be fixed? So we even had this with the constellation pattern while we were sewing up some samples. There's a little bit of like
extra curve.
No, I cut off the extra curve. So I fixed the extra curve. I decided that was a issue worth addressing. But I think at the point where the seams come together, it's a little bit of a, like, it's not as smooth of a curve as maybe it could be. And like, but when you put the panties on, like you don't, like, I don't notice that. I don't see, did you see it on like on the body? It doesn't look. And so I just ultimately was like, you know what? I don't think that's worth the extra amount of time. And even talking to Ruby from Spokes and Stitches, you know, and I was telling her like, oh, I don't really know what I'm doing. I've drafted for myself and like my mom, but I've never really drafted for, you know, other people. And she was like, you know, like you gotta not let the imposter syndrome like totally weigh you down. So there's this balance between like recognizing that I don't have the level of expertise that some folks in the industry have, and like knowing when I need to ask for help and when I need to bring on consultants to, you know, make sure that the product is quality, but also like trusting my own gut. Like I do know what a busty pattern should look like, you know, maybe even in some cases more than a lot of designers from other pattern brands who like draft for a B cup, right? Like a B cup pattern just doesn't look the same as an L cup pattern. And so it is kind of like this balance of like, when do you trust yourself? When do you call in help?
Well, even when we were drafting the sloper, you were looking at like, this looks really weird. I was like, but it sewed together fine last time. Let's just keep going with it.
Yeah.
Because our bodies, if they're not like the dress form, if we're not like the runway models, our patterns are going to look really funny.
Yeah.
Like,
well, and
they do.
They do.
But they
really
look
do.
fine on the body.
Like my t-shirt pattern, if folks are, that's the one that I feel like is the funniest looking pattern. If you go on the So Busty website and you look at the giant full bust adjustment for knits that's on there, you'll see a picture of my t-shirt pattern. And it is shaped like, because it's a combo of a boob bubble and a dart. Mm-hmm. So it's like this. Like it literally is like an S-shaped pattern, the front bodice, but it works. Like when I put it on, it fits me correctly. The grain, the grain is correct. And like, that's just what I need because I have a big, a big bubble there. So it needs to have a big bubble there. So yeah, I mean, it's true. Like there is a little bit of an element to like trusting your gut. And I think, you know, obviously I've never been to fashion school, but from the folks who I've talked to who have, like, do you even learn that much about like
No.
super curvy
No,
bodies in fashion school.
And honestly, even what all you learn when you're in school is the foundation. You learn the foundation of design and how to understand the concepts, so you can then go on and then grow.
Right.
And it wasn't until I was actually teaching and my students would come to me, they're like, "Oh, I want to do this," and it's nothing that's in the books, and it's not my job to say, "Sorry, we can't do that. It's not in a book." It's like, we were taught early on, at least my boss taught us, like, if somebody asks you something in class and you don't know the answer, you never say, "I don't know." You always say, "I will find out for you."
Right.
And which then kind of forces me to go out and research and like,
education.
Okay, well, if I don't know, I'm going to have to try and replicate this to do this myself. So how can I show them? And so that's where my knowledge came in, is actually having to troubleshoot and help other students figure out how to do their stuff.
Right.
And it was really when I was teaching my draping classes where, they would have these gorgeous designs that they would throw up on the dress form, not throw up, but they would actually put up on the dress form.
Onto the dress form, yeah.
And from there, the question is, how do I take this off so I can make a pattern?
Right.
And that was the funnest part about teaching, because it's like, now's the puzzle. Right. Okay, you did this. Okay, let's mark this. Let's stitch this together as we're taking it off so we know what goes together. So at least in that aspect, I started to see, okay, this is how that type of pattern is supposed to look, because you would never know. I would never know that from pattern drafting.
Right.
And even, in pattern drafting, it's like you are only really shown what the books tell you.
Yeah.
And it just has to be, your own drive to kind of really grow that skill.
You got to do like what I did last night. I mean, it was not for any complicated pattern drafting, but we had the burrito method. So when you're sewing together something like panties, my little miniature paper underwear over there. When you're sewing together something like panties, you like do this thing called the burrito method. So you have a nice clean finish on both sides. And I was drawing my instructions for the constellation pattern, trying to figure out and so I had photos from my process that I was using as reference material for these illustrations. But the fabric I chose for my sample didn't have a right side and wrong side. It was exactly the same on both sides. So I'm looking at this roll in this picture and I'm like, which parts are the right side of the fabric and which parts are the wrong side? Like, I can't even visualize this. So in order to figure it out, I had to make these little panties. And I this is after I had finished the burrito method, but I'm sitting here on Jennifer's couch, rolling it up, doing the burrito method. But I think, sometimes this is what you have to do, right? Yeah. Even with pattern drafting, you got to make your little miniature quarter. I mean, this is obviously not to scale, to be clear, but
sorry, if you're listening, you can't actually see what she's showing.
It's miniature paper. It's a miniature paper
underwear,
panties that would probably be the right size for I don't know, a Bratz doll, if I had taken the time to make to actually have it be a real pattern. But sometimes that's what you have to do. You have to make your little quarter sample and play around with the fabric and figure out, what needs to happen to make the design that you want.
Yeah, and to discover how not to do it.
That's, 100%.
Yeah. It's whenever I'm working on my patterns, I take photos, even from the very first sample, I take photos of every single step I do. Yeah. Because I'm like, okay, well, even if it doesn't work out, maybe I did something in that first set of instructions that kind of makes sense. But generally not. I usually have to try 2 to 3 different ways on how something can go together.
Yeah.
Just because you want to, when you're making your instructions and you're teaching people how to do it, it's you really have to work through those steps. And one of the problems I find that in pattern making, when they're teaching it in schools, they don't really teach that step of making sure that your pattern goes together correctly. They show you how to draft it, but you don't necessarily learn how it goes together. That is in a completely different disconnected class. So you'll have your pattern drafting class, which you may have to sew, but if you sew it, you're probably not sewing the whole garment. You're just sewing a sample to check the fit. Right. And that doesn't have the full construction methods. How do you sew the facing? How do you clean finish this armhole? How do we do this and that? And a lot of things I see is mistakes that would be caught if they were doing sampling, and not all pattern makers do samples. Like, some just don't. And I believe there's a lady, her name's also Jennifer, and she was volunteering with me.
So many Jennifers in this industry. It's really quite funny. Jennifer's, yes. Jens, and Jennies.
Yeah. So she's from Colombia, and she was saying that in their pattern making there, the pattern maker usually is not the same person who does the sewing.
Yeah.
And so there is a huge disconnect. It's not until you actually go to the sewist that they either correct it when they're sewing, and then the information never gets really back to the pattern maker. So that correction never is made. So I don't know.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. Because sometimes they focus on either just the patterns or just the sewing. Not everyone can sew.
Yeah. I think of like Project Runway when they're like freaking out because they're like, how do I use this sewing machine? I don't sew. I have someone else do that for me. And I'm like, gotta learn how to use that sewing machine, friend.
Yeah, I think actually when I was interviewing Cassie, she was telling me that she had a class and a teacher came in and started yelling at the student. And they're like, you can't draft that because there's no slit here. Like, it made the student cry because they didn't understand construction. And, so they were trying to draft something that couldn't actually be made. So, like how the skirt Emily just took apart, how it had that slit. That is really not a possible way to sew a garment because that's just a slit in the fabric. There's no finishing on it.
Yeah, you gotta have finishing. I hate finishing slits.
Yeah.
It's better if they're on a seam.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so how about telling us a little bit about your little one?
Yeah, I have a 2-year-old named Arthur, and he is just like the sweetest, most sensitive little kid. He's really funny, and he's really excited about sewing, which is actually kind of fun. He always likes to watch me sew, although he really likes to sit on my lap and try to like press the buttons on my sewing machine while I'm sewing. And I have to be like, no buttons, put your hands down. And he'll point to like, if I'm reading a book about pattern drafting or something, he'll like come up, sit next to me and look at the pictures and say, Mommy, that's sewing. That's sewing. I'm like, yup, that's sewing. So I think for Christmas this year, I'm going to get him one of those like felter. Yeah, the felter. Jen has one sitting over there. The little like felter machines that have the guard around the needle so you can't actually hurt yourself and there's no threads. You don't have to worry about tension because it just, combines felt. Because I think he would really enjoy that. But yeah, he's growing up so fast and like speaking in full sentences and carrying on conversations. And it's just really fun to see him grow and get bigger.
Yeah, I feel like you just had him. But it was 2 years ago.
It was 2 years ago. Yeah. It's been a while. I don't know. I feel like he's been in my life forever now. It's kind of funny. Like I know sometimes my husband and I think about like, oh, what things were like before Arthur was around. And that just feels like so long ago to me. Like, we used to like, it wouldn't be that uncommon for us to just like hop in the car and like drive to like the beach and spend an afternoon, and we just don't do those things. Like it's harder to do those things with a kid, and so we don't do a lot of those things anymore. That just feels like another lifetime, honestly.
I feel like I have a little bit of revisionist history in my mind because I'm like, oh, when I was in San Francisco, you remember that, right, Emily? My daughter's 11, was not in the picture when I was in San Francisco, but it's like I have this thought or this idea that my husband or my daughter were with me in those times, but I'm like, no, they came a lot later.
Yeah. It's really interesting how like our brains sort of blend time together, and I think especially post-pandemic, like
my concept of time.
Like my concept of time has just completely evaporated. Like I thought maybe I'd get it back as time goes on post-pandemic or post. I recognize COVID's still a thing, so I'm not trying to say it's not still a problem. Get your vaccines, folks. But I mean, like post everything being shut down, right? Like I thought that eventually my sense of time would come back, but it just really hasn't. Like I just have no concept of time anymore, and I wonder if that'll ever come back.
Well, in the last 2 weeks here, between Helene, who came in 2 weeks
Yeah.
ago, and we now have Hurricane Milton coming in 2 days. So Lindsay's jumping on a plane to head
jumping on a
home.
plane.
And so you'll see this way later. So hopefully,
everything is okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I have no concept of time because the kids were off of school during the week of Helene.
Right.
They're now off this week, and we have had 1 week of semi-normalcy, like between
and then
the
I was
storms.
here to disrupt the normalcy.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So hopefully everything will be okay. You're on high ground, so that's good.
Yeah, I think David wants his office back.
David can have his office back. I've made the bed in there and moved everything out of the way every day. He could have gone in there.
It's your space. He didn't want to disrupt. So right now we're actually in his office.
Yeah.
So he's out actually putting up our storm shutters and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've had a great conversation.
It's been so fun.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here, for
Thanks
hanging
for
out with
having me at your house, picking me up from the airport.
I know, we got to get ready to take her right back to the airport in a few.
Yeah.
But
This has been really fun.
well, thank you.
Thank you.